welcome back to another episode of Dear FoundHer. Summer is sadly over, and I'm going to slowly resume sharing 2 episodes per week once again. 1 interview and 1 FoundHer Files episode, which brings me to today. I'm sharing with you 31 actionable steps that you can start taking today to ignite your brand. But before we get into today's episode, I'm your host, Lindsay Pinchuk, and for those of you who are new around here, I've been building brands for nearly 25 years. I started my own company back in 2010 with a $500 investment and grew that business to reach 3 million users per month across multiple platforms and generate 7 figures in revenue for 6 years straight. I didn't have a marketing budget, and I started my community from scratch. I built this company through practical, cost-effective, organic marketing strategies. At the time, I didn't really know what I was doing, but in looking back, there was a process and a method to the madness, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. But I started this company in 2010 before social media was a thing, and I grew it alongside the boom of social media, really learning everything as I went along and learning how to insert and apply organic marketing strategies and traditional marketing strategies to social media and vice versa. So this was all before I led my company's acquisition to a large agency holding company in 2019. And 2 years later, I exited with one goal. And that was really to support other female founders and businesswomen through their own entrepreneurial journeys. Which brings me to today's episode. Tuesday's episodes moving forward are going to be FoundHer Files. They're episodes designed to move your business forward through a specific lesson and actionable tips. Well, there really is no blueprint for building, scaling, selling a business. I do hope that you can take these 31 steps and start them today in order to ignite your brand. If today's episode strikes a chord with you, it would mean so much to me if you shared it, or if you let me know, or if you wrote a rating or review. All you have to do is go to the link in the show notes. It's www.ratethispodcast.com/dearfoundher, and you can share how you felt about this episode or the podcast on any platform where you listen. So today I am peeling back the curtain and sharing many of the exact steps that I share and work on with my consulting clients, my coaching clients, and my students in the classes that I teach. These are steps that when you combine them together and when they work together, elicit incredible results. And all of my clients have told me this. I mean, honest to God, these are very easy steps and action items that you can take in order to really market your brand. So you don't need $1 million or 1 million followers to have a viable business. I can assure you of this. But you do need a strategy and a plan that you can put to work for you each and every month in order to really get your message out, let people know what you offer, and hopefully transact with you. Marketing your brand, business, or company, it can feel like a lot. And why is that? Because it is a lot, especially if you're a small business owner and you're trying to juggle it all. As you know, many of us are solopreneurs or have really lean teams or don't have a team at all and maybe have a couple of freelancers. It's a lot. And oftentimes the marketing gets pushed aside, gets shoved to later, but the marketing is the part of your business that you need to work on in order to move the needle, in order to build your business, and in order to move it forward. So there are a few keys here to success, all right? And I want you to remember this before we kind of dive into it. Number 1, put your community first always. No matter how big my first company got and who we were working with, I mean, we worked with like Target and Nordstrom and really big brands, my community always came first. And it's the same here at Dear FoundHer and in all of my platforms today as well. Your community comes first. Number 2, put processes in place. Each of these steps that we're going to outline today will help you to get to a place where you can have a regular action plan for the future. So memorialize your processes and stick to them. Number 3, just get started. Okay? Today is day 1. Follow these steps to get to a place where you have a plan moving forward. You have to start somewhere, and honestly, there is no better place than here and now. So before we get into the action items, the one thing that I want to share with you that I'm not going to have as an action item because it's so important that you must do this before we get into day number 1. First and foremost, you have to identify your target customer and who you want to be in your brand's community. Who is this person? Who is the ideal person? I want you to very clearly write it out, who they are. Create an avatar for them. Most important, identify what their problems are and how you and your product or service or brand or company can solve them. You want to meet your ideal customer where they are. So I want you to sit down and make a list. Where are they shopping? Where are they hanging out? What media are they consuming? What TV shows do they like? What celebrities do they identify with? What podcasts are they listening to? Make a list and really get to know your ideal customer, because you're going to use this information to create content to attract them and keep them and engage with them in your community. So are you ready? Are you ready? LFG, let's fucking go. It's time to get started right now. So today's day 1. Day number 1, share your story. You've heard me say this time and time again. Everyone has a story, including you, so share it. You want to write it down. You want to make sure you have a long version, a medium version, and an elevator pitch. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And how? The why is really the key, because that is what connects you to your community. But write it down. You can take a look at my Instagram. Around the 1st of every month, I share my story. And a lot of my clients, a lot of people in my community do as well. Share your story, tag me in it. Tag me in it, I'll comment on it. I'm happy to take a look at it. I'm happy to share it. But share your story. You might think that people know who you are and what you do, but until you share it and share it regularly, they do not. The more you share your story, the more someone or many people will share it for you in the future. So that's day number 1, share your story. Day number 2, I want you to share your story again, but on a different platform. So if on day number 1, you shared it on Instagram, share it on LinkedIn. If day number 1, you shared it on LinkedIn, put it in an email. Put it on your website. Make sure your website is up to date and reflects your story. But share your story again on a new platform. Day number 3, share a throwback or a flashback. You can do a TBT on Thursday or a flashback Friday on Friday picture. So share a picture from your past and tie the caption back to your business by telling a story about that picture and how it relates to your business, your community, or a time in your life that maybe set you up to be where you are today. Everyone has a big story, which we shared on day 1 and 2, but on day 3, I want you to take a little story that contributes to your big story, and I want you to share it. And I want you to get into the habit of sharing stories that made you and your brand and your company who you are today. And if you have an established brand, go and find a picture from when you first got started and share something about starting your business or how far you've come. Everyone has stories. You need to share them. These are such great pieces of content for you to share on Thursdays and Fridays because they let people into your past. They let people see how far you've come. And everyone has a story, right? If you need a little memory jog or if you need a little help here, a couple of ways that I always tell my clients to get this content. One, you can use the Time Hop app. It's an app that goes on your phone. It plugs into all your social media and it will tell you what you were doing on this day, as long as you posted on this day back in time. So my Time Hop, some of them go back like 12 and 13 years. And it's so cool to see like what I did on this day 13 years ago. You can also look at Facebook. They do memories as well. You can also simply scroll on your camera roll and go back to this day, this date, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is that is on your phone. and pull a picture. So those are great ways to kind of jog your memory. And if you find a picture that has a story that you think would resonate with your community, pull it aside or schedule it to share it for later. Day number 4, share your offer. Okay, so whether you are a service-based business, whether you're a product-based business, you have to tell people what you do, what your brand does, what your product does, how they can work with you, how you can solve their problems. You have to tell them how they can consume from you and how they can transact with you. If you don't share this information, people don't know how or why. They just don't. And I will tell you that when I first started this 2.0 of mine, and when I first started consulting and coaching and helping female founders, at first I just kind of assumed that people knew what I was doing. And then one day someone asked me, like, what is it that you really do? And I realized that they didn't. And so I got into the habit of sharing what I did, what I do, how you can work with me, testimonials from clients at least once a week. You have to share your offer. You have to share it, and you have to share it often. So share it. We are all so afraid to sell. We are all so afraid to put ourselves out there. But if you don't, you are not going to see transactions. And I will tell you that once I did start doing it, holy shit. It was like my business went from like a couple of clients to having a wait list. And I really and truly attribute a lot of that to me sharing my offer and showing up and telling people what it is that I do. Day number 5. Okay, I'm going to turn to social media for a minute. I want you to scroll with intention. And this is a practice that I want you to put into your everyday. And maybe set aside 10, 15, 20 minutes to scroll on social media with intention. What does that mean? So follow relevant hashtags to your industry, to your niche, and engage with accounts that are posting with the hashtag. New accounts. You can engage with accounts that you follow as well, but also engage with new accounts in your niche. And when I say engage, don't just like something, leave comments, smart comments, start conversations. I will tell you that when I share comments on people's posts on Instagram, I see a direct correlation with people following me, especially if they're good comments. And if they're a little controversial, even better, because you're going to attract the people who feel the same way as you, and they're going to come follow you. Trust me, they will. You can't just leave one comment, though. You have to make it a practice, and you have to do this often. So the way that I implement this into my process and into my day is usually the last thing I do before I go to bed at night is I scroll for 5-10 minutes, and I leave comments. I try to leave at least 5 comments on people's posts. And I try to do this on Instagram, and I try to do this on TikTok now, and sometimes on LinkedIn. It depends. Day number 6, schedule time to work on the business, not just in the business. What does this mean? So we are so sucked into the day-to-day of our business that oftentimes we're just doing for our clients, or we're really just being reactionary. But you need to schedule time to work on the business. And that is what we're doing here right now, working on the business. Marketing is working on your business. Building your brand is working on your business, okay? So I want you to put time into your calendar and treat it like an appointment. Put the time in your calendar. Social media content, marketing plan, podcast outreach, whatever it is. And we're going to get to a lot of these things today. And schedule that time and stick to it like an appointment. It's a non-negotiable. Work on the business. Day number 7, share a how-to piece of content to educate your community. Everyone knows how to do something. You know how to do something that is going to solve a problem in your community. Teach them how to do it. You can have it be 3 steps, 5 steps, 10 steps, whatever it is. You can share it in a carousel. You can share it in a reel. You can share it in a blog post. There are so many different ways, but share a piece of content on how to educate your community. Day number 8, create content buckets. What does this mean? So I want you to sit down and write out 4 to 6 themes that you're going to share about in your content, not just on social media. Content is everything you put out into the world. 4 to 6 themes that you're going to share about constantly. And every single week, you're going to fill those buckets. You're going to fill them on social media. You're going to fill them in your emails. You're going to fill them maybe in events. But these are going to be the things that you talk about consistently. Write them down. And I also want you to include, how are you going to fill them each week? What kinds of content are you going to post? How are you going to execute it? Just so you know, and so you get an idea and you can kind of think about how this works. My content buckets are me and my story, my family and friends, entrepreneurship and tips for being a female founder, marketing tips and building your brand, my podcast, and my offer. So those are the 6 things that I share about all the time in all of my content. And if something doesn't fit into one of those buckets, I usually don't post it. And I ask myself, is this content relevant to my content strategy? So that's day 8. You're going to write down your content buckets. And on day number 9, you're going to think about creating content that connects with your community. So I want you to write out ideas under each of those themes that you wrote out. And you want to make sure that each idea fits within one of the content buckets. So do a brain dump for each of those content buckets, and so that you can fill them with content that you share later on. And the very important thing that you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what's the purpose of this piece of content? And is there a strong call to action? So those are really important things that you want to think about when you're sharing any form of content, whether you're on a podcast being interviewed, whether you're sending out an email, whether you're writing an article, a blog post, or a social media post, whatever the content is. What is the purpose, and is there a strong call to action? And a strong call to action is really what you want your community to do from this piece of content. What's the next step that you want them to take? You got to ask them to do it. Day number 10. I want you to create a Post-it note. You can create a digital note, or I use the Post-it feature on my Apple, but you can use a Word document, whatever it is. And I want you to put those content buckets and all the ideas on that Post-it note and keep a running list of ideas. So anytime you have an idea of what to post, put it on that sheet. Before long, you will have a list of things that you can share, and you will never ask yourself ever again, what can I post this week? What can I post today? You will have a list generated. Day number 11, repurpose and recreate your content. So you want to create a process for taking your content and repurposing it. So remember when I told you on day number 7, I told you to create a how-to. So today what I want you to do is take that how-to and write down 10 different ways that you can share that content somewhere else. So ideas include sharing it on other social media platforms. If you made a carousel, you could make a reel. If you made a carousel, you can make a story. You can make a TikTok. There are so many different ways that you can do it, but you can take the caption and write a blog post. You can send it out in an email to your email database if you have one, and we're going to get into that. You can see if you can share that content on someone else's social media or on their platform, their media platform. There are so many different ways that you can share content. You want to create a process for this. So if you are starting with an Instagram post, you want to say, okay, I have this Instagram post, and every time I share a post on Instagram, here are the 7 other ways that I'm going to share it. So every single week I get reels, or video content rather, made for my podcast. And every single week I take that video content and I repurpose it. I share it in reels, I share it on TikTok, sometimes I put it on LinkedIn, sometimes I make YouTube shorts out of it, but I share it in many different ways. So I want you to think about all the different ways that you can share your content. It doesn't have to be 30 ways for each piece of content, but create a process, because each piece of content that you can create can be shared many, many times. And the more juice you can squeeze out of that content, the further you will go. So think about that. Day number 12, I want you to set up an interview and interview someone that your community wants to hear from. And when I say interview, you can do this in many different ways. You can interview them over email and have them respond to questions. You can interview them live on Instagram, live on TikTok, live on LinkedIn. You can interview them in a video, and then you can share it in many different ways across your social media platforms, because you have this piece of video content. So interview someone that your community think that your community would find interesting and has some information that they would want to hear about. And when you share it, you want to tag this person. When you get into the habit of sharing content and tagging people, they will start resharing your content, and thus you will be in front of more eyeballs. So an interview is a really great place to start. So day number 13, I want to talk about sweeping your content. So sweep is my method for building brands. And sweep is an acronym that stands for social media, your website, emails, events, partnerships, and publicity. So the theory and the method is basically that every single thing you put out, any message you put out, you will sweep through all of your content and all of your touch points. You don't just want to focus on social media. You really want to make sure that your content is swept across every single touch point that you have in some way, shape, or form. So I want you to start thinking about that and start thinking about the sweep acronym and how you can really take your content and share it across multiple strategies and platforms. But today, I want to make sure that you have an email service provider set up. You want to make sure that you are collecting people's emails. You don't own your social media. You own your email list. And when I sold my company, I sold 150,000 emails with it. And that was a really big part of my purchase. So you want to set up an email service provider so that you can have a direct line of communication with your community. And we're going to get into this a little bit more. And I know as I explained day 13, I explained the whole acronym of sweep. But email is a really big part of it. Your email service provider is Flowdesk, MailChimp, MailerLite, somewhere where you can collect emails and you can use that as a database to send out emails and communicate with your community. So set up your email service provider. Day number 14, you want to start getting people to sign up for your email list. So the best way that you can do that is to ask them to sign up. Send an email to everyone you know. Ask them to sign up for your newsletter. Create a sign-up form through your email service provider and put the link everywhere. Put it in the signature on your email. Put it in your email signature. Share it on social media. Have some kind of incentive for signing up, whether it's a discount for your product or your services. Maybe you're hosting an event and like right now, I just announced that I'm hosting Dear FoundHer events. And I have a form that you can sign up on, and you will be the first to know when I launch my registration. So I've collected many emails from this incentive because people want to come to these events. So think of an incentive that you can tie to the form and ask people to sign up in exchange for. Day number 15, you want to set up a welcome sequence to your email newsletter and commit to email frequency. So that form that you just put out into the world, you want to make it so that when people sign up, they get a bounce back that says, hey, thanks so much for signing up for my newsletter. I'm Lindsay Pinchuk. This is what I do, and this is what you can expect from me. You can create a sequence of 3 to 5 emails that goes out over the course of 1 to 2 weeks, tells a little bit about yourself, what people can expect from you, etc. And it's just a really great way to introduce yourself, your brand, what you do to your community. You don't have to make it too long. You know, emails can be really short and sweet. You can invite people to respond to the emails as well. People read emails. They do. And I can say with certainty, both of my companies, when I send out emails, I see more transaction than through any other platform. So it's a really great habit to get into. Day number 16. Ask yourself what the goal of your content is and what is the action that you want your community to take. So this was a lot of information, and so I'm going to take a breath here, and I'm going to ask that you do the same. What I really want you to do is go out and start day 1. Share your story. Share it and tag me at Lindsay Pinchuk, at Dear FoundHer. I will reshare your story with my own community. I will comment back. I cannot wait to meet you, but let's get started. I want you to stay tuned for part 2 of today's conversation, which would be tips 16 to 31, coming your way tomorrow.